There is a freaking hair that, or a piece of lint that is just, sorry. It's like squirrel, squirrel. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dina Haynes and I'm reading to you my book called Neesa. It is a contemporary romance, the first in the first reality book series I've ever heard of, which is why I called it the original. And what that means is that the heroines in the book are based off of actual real readers just like you or listeners, and they got to pick the hero of their dreams, and I craft a fictional story based off of them. So if you have not watched chapters 1 through 12, this is the time to go back. There'll be links in the video as well as down below in the description, and start from the beginning, or I guess start right now, whatever floats your boat. I'm about to drop some spoilers about the last chapter. Okay, Denise finally said yes to Reuben, much to his surprise. They had a little intimate rendezvous in the kitchen, again, I guess, where they actually kissed. And kissing is almost like a litmus test for chemistry. I mean, when you kiss, you really know whether or not there is like true chemistry there, even if the incident in the closet wasn't a big indicator. So be sure to like the video, subscribe, and what is that? Oh, hit the little bell icon so you'll be notified when the next chapter goes up. All right, now we're beginning chapter 13. This is from Neesa's perspective. Geez, 2 dates and I pulled my cell phone out and checked the time. 2 hours, that had to be a record. I couldn't wait to tell Annabelle. She'd been dropping hints about our agreement for over a week now. I could hear in her voice that she was disappointed I hadn't kept my end of the bargain. Well, she couldn't hold a grudge against me now. I texted, "I'm back, baby. 2 dates in a row. How you like me now?" Seconds later, she texted back an open-mouthed, smiling emoji. Suddenly, I was nervous. In my mind, a date with David meant a boring, cerebral conversation discussing wine or current events. No pressure there. Ben was different. He'd taken sex off the table, but half the time we'd spent together ended up in some kind of groping situation. I mean, the guy took me through a spin cycle and the washing machine wasn't even on. What could he do with unlimited time in a bed, for Christ's sakes? Curiosity didn't just kill the cat. Nobody talks about what led to the poor pussy's ill-timed death. Nobody mentions how curiosity made her horny and then strung her out to the point she couldn't stand living anymore. That's where the real story was. How did Ben and I move past that to keep the energy platonic? I shook off a shiver of arousal. I am not having sex tonight. I felt better already saying it out loud, so I repeated it as I performed one more walkthrough, checking locks and turning off lights. I said, "He's not ready to settle down. The only reason he's this infatuated with me is because I'm the first woman who wouldn't spread her legs just for the experience. All I have to do is prove that I'm not worth the effort. Or I could just have sex with him and be done with it. Get my feet wet, very wet, and then on to better, more compatible bachelors." Back in the kitchen, I wiped down the sink and put the cooking utensils in my grocery tote. My hands shook and a wave of dizziness came over me. I was starving, and eating that cookie after the last people had left didn't help. I dug in my purse for a package of emergency almonds and ate them while I turned off the last lights and locked the front door. When I turned around, Ben stood in the twilight at the end of the driveway, holding the empty bag of cookies. He said, "Parking at the restaurant sucks. It'd be better if we carpooled." "I'll drive," I volunteered, securing my easy getaway strategy. After I loaded my bags into the front trunk of my Tesla SUV, Ben opened the driver's side door for me. It was a nice touch, but since I was making a concerted effort not to like him, I criticized it as overkill. Once inside the passenger seat, he plugged the address of the restaurant into my GPS, and we were on our way. He said, "This is some kind of robocar," poking at the control screen on the dashboard. "Technology, right?" I said, don't touch that, please. I take it you don't have an eco-friendly car?" He said, "Hell no. My car would eat your car for breakfast and fart rainbows afterward." I choked on a laugh. "Yeah, well, it's important we all do our part to save the planet, no matter how small. You know, it's practically in my DNA to protect the Earth. My people sort of invented the term environmentally friendly before it became a thing." He said, "Your people?" I said, "Native Americans." He said, "Oh, you mean you're the real article?" I glared at him, a warning he was about to cross a boundary. He said, "I just mean a lot of people try to claim they have Indian blood, but when they get the DNA results, it turns out to be a bunch of stories. Why do you think people want to be related to Indians so bad?" I frowned. "Well, first of all, it's Native American. And I think it's lunacy. My people have been treated so poorly in this country. Why anyone would want a part of that is beyond me. I've earned the right to be proud of my lineage through discrimination and bad jokes my whole life." He said, "Yeah, I guess when you put it that way." I tensed my shoulders. This is a terrible way to start a first date. A history lesson in genocide? Reuben said, "Come on, we're getting to know each other. Say, ever have a conversation where you wanted to stick your foot in your mouth?" I said, "No, but I've definitely been a witness to one." He laughed and a chuckle may have slipped on my end. He said, see, I got you to smile." I did, and after a beat he said, "You're a beauty, you know that?" I cringed. "Please don't try to win me over with compliments. I appreciate them, but..." He said, "No problem. Strike two. Well, maybe you should do the talking. Tell me about yourself. Did you grow up in $1 million home, riding around in nice cars with alien technology?" I squirmed, uncomfortable and losing interest as the conversation grew forced. Stuck in the car with him, though, I had nothing to do but answer. "No," I scoffed. "I'm from a small town in Missouri." Reuben said, "Here we go. I also came from meager beginnings. Do you have any siblings?" I sighed. "One, a little brother. You?" He said, "No, I was an only child." "Hey, I thought we agreed you were doing the talking." I said, "Why? What's wrong with your life?" He said, "I can think of much happier things to talk about." I said, "You seem like a confident, well-adjusted..." Wait, I might have taken it a bit too far. He gave a mirthless chuckle. He said, "Okay, if that'll keep you on this date with me." I knew it might be painful, but I was intrigued by this side of him. I asked, "Where did you grow up?" He said, "Vegas." I said, "Wow, that's not something you hear every day. You mean the suburbs?" He said, "No, on the Strip. We hopped from one flea bag apartment to another. My mom was a casino waitress." I said, "Wow, again." I glanced over and found him staring out the window, quiet and pensive. My chest constricted as I imagined a little boy Ben fending for himself while his mother worked for tips in the smoke-filled casinos all night. "What about your dad?" He said, "Didn't have one." The news shook me to my core. I never imagined he'd have a tragic story, one very similar to my own. I knew what it felt like to have a hole in your life that big. I asked, "Who looked out for you?" He said, "I did. My mother didn't work every night, but that look you're giving me, what you're imagining, is exactly what it was like, probably worse." I leaned forward to catch a glimpse of his face. "You can't see my expression out the window." He said, "No, but I can feel it. Besides, it's the same way everyone reacts when I tell them, which is why I don't." He finally turned toward me. "Don't look so sad. I turned out okay. I'm not a menace to society anymore. Well, only to you." I smirked and shrugged. "Can't argue with you there. You're right, though. This does seem like a conversation for another time." All of a sudden, the clouds in his eyes parted. "Another time? Already planning our second date, are you? My schedule is wide open." I snickered. "Shut up." Several minutes later, I parked across the street from an unremarkable strip of businesses. One brightly lit place stood out. Though there was no signage, a line of people had already started forming at the door. Ben rummaged in his pockets for coins to feed the meter. Then he grabbed my hand and whisked me across Sunset Boulevard, risking our lives as we dodged cars across the 4-lane street. Drivers lined up in the tiny parking lot, waiting patiently for a space to open up. The food must have been spectacular to warrant that kind of dedication from locals. Ben hadn't let go of my hand, I noticed, as he led me to the glass front entrance. Inside, the long and narrow space stretched before us, with the kitchen on the left and a series of small tables with bright orange chairs on the right. More hungry diners lined up behind us, despite the fact that it was early for dinner. A waiter squeezed past me to deliver food to a table next to the door, and I jerked back and bumped into Ben. I tried to ignore the pings of electricity where his body touched mine, disappointed that the somber discussion in the car hadn't dampened the buzz between us. Trying to mask how much I liked being close to him, I asked, "So, what's good here?" He leaned in and my heart skipped a few beats, then rushed to catch up. A Yoda-like voice sounded in my head. "Chemistry is strong with this one." Ben said, "The beef pho with meatballs is my favorite, but I also like their lemongrass steak noodles. You're not a vegetarian, are you?" His face twisted in a distasteful way as he mumbled to himself with prayer hands, "Please don't be a vegetarian." I elbowed him in the ribs and whispered, "I'm not." As he rambled on about the menu, I watched the way his mouth shaped around his words, remembering the kiss we'd shared in the kitchen. My face heated when he stopped talking and caught me staring. I turned my attention to a group of 3 standing behind us, pretending to listen in on their conversation. I tried to master my emotions, but there was nowhere to hide. I crossed my arms and let out a shaky breath. If he'd pulled me out of the restaurant at that moment, I'd have given in to my desires. He said, "Are you cold?" He put his arm around my shoulder and I warmed up instantly. We didn't wait long before they sat us at a table in the middle of the restaurant. Have you hit the like button yet? What are you waiting for? Please hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the little bell icon, and let us continue. Since I knew next to nothing about Vietnamese food, I trusted Ben to order for me. His energy was different here, more at ease. I tried to relax and see if we could last through a normal conversation. I asked, "You must come here a lot. Do you live in the area?" He said, "No, I have a house on the border of the West Adams area." "What? Don't look so surprised." I closed my mouth. I can't lie," I laughed. "I'm sorry. I honestly figured you for the uncommitted type. You know, renting a bachelor unit in Koreatown or Echo Park or something." He said, "I am the uncommitted type, but not when it comes to housing." Every time he made those kinds of statements, they reinforced my fears about him. I said, "You never wanted to have kids or start a family?" His jaw muscles clenched. "No, kids trigger panic attacks, and as for family, I don't have any. Not since my mom died. It happened over 5 years ago, and we were never really close." I said, "That's still sad. My family's pretty close. I don't know what I'd do without my mom. What about your father?" He said, "Never met him." Are your mom and dad still together?" I got the sense his father was a trigger topic and made a mental note to tread carefully. I said, "No, Mom lives in Missouri with my little brother. Dad died in a tragic accident when I was young." "Now you're giving me that look. You know, the one you accused me of in the car?" His mouth turned up in a half smile. "What do you know? There's a heart beating in this chest after all." I said, "Wow, you really don't think much of yourself, do you?" Laughing through his pain, he rubbed a hand over his face. I asked, "Your mom mess you up that bad?" He said, "It's not all doom and gloom. I'm actually pretty happy with my life. It's not like I hate women. I actually have a lot of fun with them. Commitment just complicates things, or at least it used to." I said, "See, that's what I don't get. You realize I'm not going to have sex with you." He said, "Technically, we already did." As I blushed, he continued, "I guess I'm willing to explore other options. Hey, there's a first time for everything." "What about you? You're a beautiful woman. What are you saving yourself for?" I sat back, thankful the waiter picked now to drop 2 cans of beer at the table. Once we were alone again, I said, "You always this serious with your lady friends on the first date?" He appeared shocked. "Haven't you been listening the past few minutes? My lady friends and I don't usually talk." I said, "Right." He said, "I didn't know I was asking a serious question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. kind of defeats the purpose of getting to know each other. He leaned over the table, lowering his voice. Unless you've reconsidered and want to skip to the sex part, we can get this soup to go. I bristled, but his sense of humor was getting to me, in a good way. I said, no, I'll take the question for 500, Alex. He said, is that from Jeopardy? Not a big fan, but go ahead. I said, I'm not really saving myself. Sex isn't currency to me. It's intimate, something you share with a person you've developed feelings for. He said, you mean what we did in the closet? Of course there were feelings involved. You felt horny. I felt horny. We rubbed each other until we both felt better. See, feelings all over the place. The people sitting next to us glanced over, and I knew my face must have turned bright red. You're a little devil, you know that? Ben's face lit with laughter at my expense, but it was infectious. I sipped my beer and rubbed a hand over my scalp. I was more than a little turned on. He asked, so what did your boyfriend do to ruin you? A little beer went down my windpipe and I coughed. He said, I know that's why you're single. I said, boyfriend, huh? Good guess. He said, guess? Don't insult me. I told you I'm a PI, but I'm not psychic, so start with the gory details. I took a moment to search for the waiter, hoping he would come and interrupt us again. No such luck. I made my hands busy by unsheathing my chopsticks and scraping them together. I said, I broke up with him. It was painful waiting for Ben to ask the right question so I could tell the story in pieces. Quick was better. I continued, we were engaged. I caught him cheating on me with my male hairdresser. Yes, male hairdresser. And no, I didn't know he was gay or bisexual or pansexual, whatever. It all happened 3 years ago. I was away in Missouri taking care of my mom while she went through chemo for advanced stage cancer, and I had a mini breakdown, as in a mental breakdown. I turned down the acting part of A Century. You've heard of the show Infected? Yeah, that one. I just broke up with my fiance, abandoned the part, nursed my mom back to health for like a year, and then I came back and started all over in real estate. The waiter arrived and placed huge steaming bowls of soup in front of us, along with a plate of leafy green stuff. I recognized basil, cilantro, lime wedges, sprouts, and some kind of sliced green chili pepper. The soup looked bare, making it easy to figure out what to do with the fresh ingredients. I watched as Ben reached for the red chili sauce in the middle of the table and nothing else. Referring to the accompaniments, I asked, aren't we supposed to share this? He said, nope, that's all yours. As I dressed my soup, he said, nothing surprises me anymore. In this town, the scenario with your ex is all too common, but I hope you're not using his mistakes as a reason to stay away from men altogether. I mean, look at you. What a waste. I eyed him from under my lashes. Okay, now the fighter comes out. Point for you. He said, is that all it was worth? A measly point? I think I deserve better than that. The way his mouth quirked whenever he tried to hide his smile loosened my heartstrings an inch and more. He seemed to notice as his expression darkened and the sexual vibe was back. I turned my focus to my soup. After a taste, I moaned, where have you been all my life? He said, now you're trying to make me jealous. I said, this is good. He said, take another point for me then. I said, enough with the points. He slurped his soup, staring at me. I guess I should confess I looked you up on IMDb after Claire mentioned you were an actress. Remember, Accused? I paused, suddenly wary. Is that why you've been pursuing me all this time? Some lame celebrity obsession? He said, no. Look, Denise, I couldn't care less about your acting career. You don't have anything to fear from me. My interest in you is purely... I said, physical? Yeah. I get the message loud and clear. He said, apparently it's not physical since you told me you won't have sex with me and I'm still here. I said, sorry I snapped. I just got a lot of bad press after I quit that TV show. And you can never be too careful about obsessive fans. The internet is so convenient for predators, you know? He frowned but nodded. I added, so anything interesting on my page? He shrugged. You looked a lot different in your pictures. I knew he was referring to my hair. My thoughts went to a dark place. I had made a subconscious effort to escape my old identity. Once I wiped the slate of my old life clean, I didn't want any reminders of the past, and my long hair was tied to who I was back then. I said, "You really should try the soup with the herbs." I held out a spoonful. "Go on, taste it." He said, "In case you haven't noticed, I'm kind of stuck in my ways." I said, "You're out with me, so looks like you're due for a change. Come on, one bite." He fidgeted in his seat, then leaned forward, accepting my offer. After he made a dramatic show of chewing the green stuff, he swallowed and conceded, "Okay, point for you this time." He paused a moment and then said, "It doesn't matter to me what your hair looks like. I get a boner either way." I laughed despite myself. "I swear I don't know why I like you." His head stretched upward, much like a turtle's. "You hear that, everyone?" he announced, and several other diners turned our way. "She likes me." All right, that's the end of chapter 13. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe and hit the little bell icon. And stay tuned, because the next chapter, we're still on this date, but we're going to get it from Reuben's perspective. And I'm excited, and I hope you are. See you then.